Welcome to TechNation's On-Demand webinar series. This is a streamlined series of on-demand webinars focused specifically on the biomedical and HTM industry. New webinars will be added on a regular basis, and each will be eligible for one continuing education credit from the ACI. At the conclusion of this presentation, you will be able to access a link that will take you to a quick survey. You will be able to download your certificate once you submit the survey. Today's presentation is titled PartsSource On-Site Service and will be presented by Scott Latt, Senior Director, Service Solutions Product Manager of PartsSource, Inc. We would like to thank our sponsor, PartsSource. PartsSource is the world's largest provider of medical replacement products. They help more than 3,000 member hospitals and more than 15,000 clinical sites achieve sustainable savings and efficiencies. For more information, please visit PartsSource.com. As I mentioned earlier, our presenter today is Scott Latt. Scott will provide an overview of how PartsSource is connecting you to a network of service specialists so you can confidently get your critical equipment back in working order. Scott, you may begin whenever you are ready.
Thank you, and I couldn't be more excited to be joining you on this webinar, this virtual webinar, where I will be talking about some new approaches to on-site equipment service by PartsSource. As has been mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of Services for PartsSource. I've been with the company for about 2 years now, but have spent about 25 years in the medical equipment industry, working both with large OEMs as well as companies like PartsSource. And I'm really excited to walk you through kind of this agenda over the next 45 to 50 minutes. First of all, we're going to spend a little time on PartsSource just to refresh kind of you all on who PartsSource is for those that are out there that have used PartsSource in the past. We've got some, kind of evolution to talk to, but we are that company that many of you used throughout the years. We've got a very cool commitment to services that I'll talk to as well, and then specifically spend quite some time on the on-site service solution, kind of what makes the solution up, kind of the concepts of the network on top of the algorithms that we're using to drive our on-site service solution, and then even some of the event management that we're doing with the service events that come up through the PartsSource on-site solution. I'll do a demo just to show you kind of how easy it is and how we've built it into PartsSource.com, and then finish up kind of the on-site service solution overview with some advanced analytics. We do have a case study that I'll walk through at a very high level and then talk a little bit more about the service network, knowing that a lot of this will be local to each of you as you're watching, viewing this webinar, and then hopefully engaging with PartsSource on the solution itself. So to begin with, just a little bit of a refresher on PartsSource today. So as mentioned a little bit earlier, we've got a broad presence within the industry. Just an update, as we exited kind of 2020, we're in over 4,000 hospital and health systems throughout the country. So when you think about around a 5,000 hospital universe, we're in almost 80% of all the hospitals in the United States. Relative to kind of the number of parts that we have on our website, almost 4 million parts are available through PartsSource.com, and that translates into 9 million page views per year up on PartsSource.com. I've mentioned PartsSource.com a few times for those that are familiar with PartsSource. We actually have an online e-commerce solution that, again, many of you have tapped into. If you haven't been on site, though, over the last 2 years, if you go back a little bit, I'd encourage you to spend a few minutes. I'll show you kind of how it looks and walk through a little bit of the on-site service solution specifically, but I would encourage you to spend some time, because in 2019 we introduced a full facelift to the PartsSource.com solution. So the other nuance to this slide is over 95,000 active users of this platform. So this is really a testament to how important PartsSource has become to our users throughout the country. I'll comment on kind of the rise that you see here on the graph. So historically, we've been a very significant parts provider. A lot of customers, a lot of you all have come to PartsSource with those hard to find parts, and we've spent a lot of time helping you find those hard to find parts. What we did back in 2015 is we introduced a new way to work with PartsSource, not only those hard to find parts, but all of your parts. And what we did is we introduced a managed service solution that has just hit all the right spots with respect to clinical engineering and healthcare technology management teams throughout the country. You're telling me that I can go to one site and get all of my parts, and that's what we've actually entered into with a variety of customers, some of which are located over here on the lower right-hand portion, the logos that you see here, throughout the country. Then I've got one additional slide that'll actually give you a flavor for this a little bit more holistically throughout the country. But the nuance here is we've just seen the number of sites using our technology blossom and grow significantly over the last 5 years. And this is kind of that, the logo screen that we like to share with our customers. Largest integrated delivery networks, across the country are utilizing PartsSource.com more from a managed service solution than from just a parts procurement solution. And it's really this foundation of a managed service that we're introducing elements like service to our customers. And this slide itself talks about kind of our service commitment. What we've decided to do over the last several years is take everything we've learned from a parts perspective and apply it to service. A depot repair solution is up online. It has been up on PartsSource.com for a few years now, so going back into the 2016-2017 timeframe, where we are actually offering customers flat rate depot repair solutions for infusion pumps, patient monitoring devices, and the like. So our customers are sending a lot of those devices in, we're repairing them, hassle-free warranty is attached to that repair, often getting it back in 5 days or less. And it's just a significant way to complement what a lot of the clinical engineering and biomedical teams are doing throughout the country. The two other services that you see here are relatively new compared to the depot repair solution. And I'll talk a lot more about on-site service, but as we exit this slide, just want to also mention training and education. Up on PartsSource.com, considering it, kind of that e-commerce platform, you're able to not only buy parts, but also look at training options and training solutions that are loaded up on PartsSource.com. So just a wealth of service solutions that we've got available for you as well. And that takes me to on-site service. Really excited to spend the rest of our time together talking about on-site service. We actually launched this in October of 2020. We had a virtual event where we announced this to the marketplace on behalf of all of the work that PartsSource has been doing with on-site service, and you'll see a lot of that yet throughout this presentation. It's first of kind and evidence-based, so we're very excited about this being kind of similar to parts, a one-stop shop when it comes to services. And the way we're differentiating our solution is around being evidence-based and being applying the same sort of algorithms that we've been doing with parts to the service world. There's benefits for you all from a hospital provider perspective, but we also built this for the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, and then the ISOs, the independent service organizations as well, to benefit them, right? So all of the benefits that the hospital providers, the clinical engineers, the imaging specialists, that that they enjoy going to PartsSource.com from a singular platform. We're doing the same thing with the OEMs and the ISOs. They can deal with one company, PartsSource, as we deal with all of you from a hospital provider perspective. So a lot of exciting benefits for multiple kind of customers as well as providers of services. What this represents is a lot of significant time and cost savings across the board. High quality solution, so we're applying quality at every turn, and we'll walk through kind of how that plays out with respect to the solution. Improved visibility, so one thing that you'll see is a lot more visibility, transparency built right into our solution that just isn't available out there in the marketplace today. And then simplicity. What could be easier than leveraging a tool that you use day in and day out to do not only the parts, but also service procurement for many of your time and material and hourly billed service needs. And then ultimately, as you'll see and appreciate, this turns into better outcomes for you all as well as the industry. And again, as we all are committed to healthcare, you know, that's just table stakes for all of us, is to constantly improve outcomes for not only the individual service events, but the hospitals, the patients, and everyone else. So just to begin your, understanding of where we're coming from, these are some of the common challenges we see with on-demand services. And my ask for you all is just to think through how many resonate with you. And I'd like you to think about this when you think of like a part installation. So we do a lot of part installations, as you might expect. You know, we sell parts and we have service that is attached to that part sale, that part transaction. So think about that. We also do a lot of corrective maintenance when it comes to diagnosis and repair. So if a system's down, we have the ability to tap into this solution for corrective maintenance. And then there's elements of preventative maintenance that has to happen, with all the equipment out there. And we do, all of those types of services through this solution. And as you're thinking through, your history in any one of those, these are some of the observations that we've made. There's a lot of time wasted pursuing quotes from vendors. You're spending a lot of time, on the phone or via email, waiting for replies. We take care of all of that. A lot of subjective decision making. I called Joe 3 months ago, and I'll call Joe, this time around. Nothing wrong with that, but there might be some quality elements that we can help you with and provide you some options, if nothing else, relative to kind of some of the decision making moving forward. Extreme price variation across a lot of the vendors, and this is something that, as you've probably done, you go to one vendor, you get one price, you go to another vendor, you get another price, and then if you go to that same vendor 6 months later, it'll be a third price more often than not. So we're helping a lot with that, with our communications with the ISOs and the OEMs. The OEM actually spends a lot of time on service contracts, wanting to get you as a healthcare provider attached to that service contract. And there's nothing wrong with service contracts. They have a time and place, but there's other ways to do on-site service. Quality comes back in, how do you measure kind of a field engineer? We're actually doing that through our solution. Inconsistent performance is another thing that happens. And again, you'll see how we're managing that. Minimal feedback. So there's that concept of, okay, I want to provide some feedback on this, and you can always call, the engineer, the company, write an email, but we've built that right into the process. Poor communication, and you'll see, we've I think addressed that significantly with our solution. Reporting challenges, you just have some of those challenges. I have the event that we had done, and I still am waiting for the field service report. So some of those things are addressed with our solution. And then just from an analytics perspective, as you'll see, we're capturing all of the metrics associated with all of the service events and building them right into our solution. And not only for measurement and KPIs, but it is built in to actually address performance moving forward for future events as well. So I'm going to walk through kind of the solution now. And the first element of this solution is the PartsSource service network. So we can't do this without service provider partners throughout the country. And we've established over 100 unique service provider relationships throughout the country. We've always had, kind of, a handful, a couple dozen service providers that we've worked with historically. As I mentioned earlier, part installation is a big part of this offer, and we've been doing part installations for customers for almost 4 or 5 years now. So this isn't new to us. We've just not made it part of the PartsSource.com experience and literally added the volume of service providers that we'll walk through a little bit here. We've got over 1,200 vetted service specialists with credentials. So all of these individuals come to us through a vetting process that PartsSource does with all of the service providers, similar to what we do from a parts perspective, but we're doing even more with our service specialists themselves. All fully certified, trained. We have strong presence, as I'll walk through a little bit later, in CT, MR, X-ray, ultrasound, and C-arms, and we're continuing to add service providers to this network. So what you see today will only get better moving forward. And then, strong coverage across the entire United States. I mentioned the managed service customers earlier. We did an analysis late last year, and all have multiple service specialists a car ride away. And in this age of COVID, it becomes even more important relative to local support. And we feel very comfortable and confident that we've built a service network that can support a lot of our customers. And all of this is a commitment that PartsSource made about 2 years ago to build this solution. So it's something that we spent a lot of time technology-wise, but also from a service network perspective, adding service specialists and service providers to our service network. So that's kind of the first element. And then the second element, I'm going to break up into kind of two parts of the process. The first is enabling ease of use to add a service event through PartsSource.com to kind of your PartsSource.com experience, right? So today, a lot of those 95,000 users are buying parts. They know how to go into PartsSource.com to add a part to the cart. They purchase that part through a cart purchasing process, pretty straightforward. And then what we've done is we've added on-site service as an option to all those part purchases. So, and I'll demo this a little bit later, you can actually click on the add on-site service, add that to the cart, and then what we're doing is we're taking that request and bouncing it up against the service network that I mentioned and offering up the best available service specialist based on that service event request that's available to do your service event in the time frame that's been identified. So again, utilizing things that we've done for many years relative to precision procurement is that procurement engine that we've done with the parts business. We're applying those same concepts and then some to kind of services. And at the end of the day, we're able to respond to service event requests in a matter of hours through PartsSource.com and emails instead of, multiple hours instead of multiple days, multiple emails, multiple phone calls, and the like. So all of this is built in. And then just a subtle element of this, but a very important, what we're doing with all of this information per service event is building it back into precision procurement. For every service event that we do, we capture various metrics. We build them into kind of the record, right? The work order to be consistent with, many of you as you're thinking about work orders within your CMMS. But specifically, these are service event cases that we manage. And all of that information is then fed back into this precision procurement algorithm and will result in different rankings of each of these service specialists and service providers into the future. So, they're got a lot of investment into making sure that they're performing optimally for you all, for us, so that as they come up against future events, they're ranked higher in that ranking system than others that aren't aren't operating to the level that we want them to be operating relative to service delivery. So this is, kind of that procurement process. And again, we'll walk through that a little bit later in the demo. The second element of our solution is really on event management. So when you think about a service event, it's great to be able to offer up, kind of an engineer. Maybe I didn't have access to those engineers historically, but what we're also doing is providing that next level rigor and surveillance around the service event itself. Each of our service providers have access to mobile application technology that is designed to capture all of the events, the steps in the process, if you will, of that event from a dispatched, en route, repair and process perspective. And then as they're closing up kind of that service event, actually getting into some final testing and cleanup and other elements associated with that service event. They complete it via the mobile app, and then they're able to notify the customer that the service event proper has been completed. And then the FSR is being done to submit from a field service record perspective, inclusive of a lot of the event information that's captured in the mobile application. And that's what's kind of represented on the right-hand side. The service event itself is captured in the service report, and that's sent out to you all, our customers, as a need from a service event management perspective to capture what transpired with that service event, to build it into and load it into the CMMS and maintain the appropriate records for these service events and the maintenance of that equipment. So again, procurement is kind of the front end, and then the back end is this event management type solution that is, again, very unique to what PartsSource has done with on-site service and what we've introduced to the marketplace. So now I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to stop my video. I'm going to turn on kind of my website, PartsSource.com, just to show you kind of how this looks and feels up on PartsSource.com. So this is kind of the homepage of PartsSource.com, something that many of you are already familiar with. And what we've done is we've added kind of on-site service throughout the website. The first thing I'll call your attention to, for those that are familiar with PartsSource.com and really love the ease of use and the speed to submit requests of quotes, is just the opportunity not only to do part quotes, requests a quote, and depot repair request a quote, but also now on-site service. So, kind of one way to add a service event request to your queue, if you will, and send it back to PartsSource. And then simply clicking on on-site service as a radio button, you're now able to actually load various elements of the service event need, and then send that over to PartsSource from a on-site service precision procurement process. So that's one way to do this. We've thought of multiple ways. I'm going to show you just two other ways. The second way is kind of through kind of the on-site service menu. So some of you, and I'll actually walk through kind of the medical imaging department. You use those departments to manage your part purchases. Now you're able to do kind of your on-site service procurement processes as well. We've got some marketing information built up in here, referencing things that I've already mentioned relative to the largest network and pre-qualified specialists, and just the process and cost savings that are part of the on-site service solution. And again, for those that are used to doing this, they can click on the start here and gain access to kind of the form once again to submit their specific information around the service event itself. And then there are other, additional marketing elements built into this landing page. We've got the testimonial. We've got various featured modalities that kind of recommend areas for on-site service that are higher volume usages. I mentioned C-arms and MR and CT. We follow the same conventions that PartsSource.com proper uses. So we're going to recommend some of the higher volume solutions and then some of the higher volume manufacturers that we're working with as well. And again, nice reminder here, and multiple ways to start the service request. So you can do that. And then I'd also call your attention to kind of the bottom of the page, if you will. Need a service not listed. So as I'll walk through, I'll show you a little bit of what we're talking about there. But contract analysis, staffing solutions, remote device monitoring, not as prevalent volume-wise as what I'll walk you through here in a moment, but still part of the solutions that we're delivering to many of our managed service customers throughout the country. So as is typical, just give us a call, reach out to your PartsSource sales team member, and we'll be able to help you with a lot of those elements as well. But I want to walk you through, kind of, doing this as a lot of our customers would, relative to adding on-site service to a medical imaging part purchase, for example. And the use case I'm going to walk through is, somebody knows they have to buy an RF amplifier for their MR. So what I'm going to do is leverage, the platform. I'm going to go to medical imaging, click on that. And again, we've built into PartsSource.com. So those that haven't spent a lot of time up on PartsSource.com lately, this will look a little bit new to you. We've built in some navigation, we've built in some visuals above and beyond kind of what we've done historically. But again, I'm interested in this MR amplifier. I'm going to click on MR. Another landing page that shows you some of the things that we're doing with MR. And then, I know I want MRI scanner parts. So I've got these categories listed to the left. Click on MRI scanner parts. And now what's going to happen is I'll actually go to kind of all of the different scanner parts that are available. And again, I know this RF amplifier is what I'm interested in. So I'll click on that RF amplifier. And now what I'll do is I'll go into this RF amplifier, click on it. And this is very consistent with various part purchases that our customers are doing on a daily basis. You can see all the elements that are built into this part, if you will. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've added this radio button called Add On-Site Service to this. So clicking on Add On-Site Service enables this workflow to include submitting information around the on-site service need. So once I add to cart, what'll happen here is there are a variety of fields that pop up, including some new service fields. So I'm going to call this work order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 asset ID. I'm going to be creative and do the same exact thing. Functional location, why break tradition here? So just use kind of the same thing. Now location details, this is where it becomes important to provide some information around the facility. So I'm going to say first floor ortho. We've got an MR within the orthopedic clinic, and then from a model number, I'm going to go here for a model number. We know it's Siemens. So this, RF amplifier goes into a Siemens device, and I'm going to do this Avanto. So I click on Avanto, and then this is going to be, again, MR. So I'm going to click on MR just to provide that category level information. So service type, we're installing the RF amplifier, and I'm going to say next day for this turnaround time. And I should just pause there. We've got various elements. Same day. We have some customers calling up for same day service. Something's down, and we actually need to get a engineer on site immediately. So we've actually done that numerous times. Our network is built to that, and I'll walk you through kind of how that looks for one specific customer a little bit later in the presentation. But a lot of times it's next day or even preventative maintenance service engagements within the next 2 weeks, greater than 2 weeks. So we've got all of those capabilities that then are sent into, you know, kind of the algorithm, and we're able to submit those needs back to our service network based on all of this information that's submitted to us. And then I'm going to talk about the specific service needed, install of RF amplifier, and then click on request a quote to add to the cart. And what happens is this is submitted and available in your quotes menu, as well as sent back to PartsSource relative to this need from a service event quote need. So just to walk you through other elements, I've actually submitted that. And then once I go over into a little bit more of our navigation capabilities, what you'll also notice now with PartsSource.com is we have on-site service as another kind of tab within, another selection within kind of the My Account tab. And then what happens here is you can actually see the detail of what we just submitted. And this was the, again, installation of the amplifier. What we're doing at this juncture is we're, you know, attaching reference numbers for our internal use and then for your use moving forward. And then this is going to be the way you all can monitor and see kind of all of the elements of this service event over time. The first thing that we do with this service event request is we're actually going to send it out to our service network. We have algorithms built in on the back end that enable us to identify those service providers that are trained to do this, that are able to do this, that are available to do this. So we send the quote request out to multiple service providers, and then we're actually going to get multiple, you know, quotes and proposals back from those service providers. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send you a quote of the best available service specialist. So similar to how we've historically, you know, recommended various kind of options with parts, we're going to recommend this as the best available option. And then what you'll be able to do is not only see what you submitted, but there's this little view details button that'll actually take your service request, and then you'll see kind of the service specialist that we've identified to do this. We list out the customer satisfaction score, the years of experience for this individual service specialist, what their specialties are, MR being important for this service event, and then the training that they've actually received. And again, this individual has received, you know, GE, Philips training from a multi-vendor perspective to be able to go in and do this service event for this customer. And then these are some of the customers that this service specialist has worked with historically, and we've identified the number of similar jobs performed through PartsSource. So this gives you a flavor for not only, you know, their years of experience within the industry, but how long they've actually worked with PartsSource and the number of service events that they've managed. As you might expect, this will only grow over time, given kind of the newness of this, and we like to refer to it as a service ERP, enterprise resource planning solution, is what we've actually built with this. So this will only grow over time. And then, you know, probably most specific is here's the travel, I'm sorry, the cost, and it's a flat rate cost, travel included. Here's the scope of work to be, you know, performed, and then, you know, here's some additional service event information about the specialist or the event itself, and we're calling out that this individual has been OEM trained, and you can actually see a lot of that information on the back end. So what you as a user would do now is you'd add it to the cart and complete your purchasing process as you normally do with your part purchases. And then the other nuance here is once you buy that or purchase that service event, it'll actually go over into our service event tab. So now this is, again, just the same information that you submitted initially relative to the submission and adding to that part purchase. And then we've added a few additional bits of information now so that you can, get a little bit more information. First of all, we're going to, once purchased, not only give you some generic information, but give you the name of the service specialist. So this is important because we're instructing all of our service specialists to reach back out to you as the customer and set up logistics relative to the service event. Okay, I know it's first floor ortho at Chatham Memorial, but is there a place you want me to go? Especially in times of COVID, there are probably some special circumstances that need to be coordinated and arranged through kind of the customer specifically, and it might vary, 1 month to the next. So we're instructing our service specialists to call our customers directly. And then the other nuance here is, if I go back to kind of the on-site service menu, the open service event, you'll actually notice that there's a view history that now shows up. And this is, again, tracking elements of this service event by, at timestamps and steps in the process. So, this is, again, a historical kind of staged representation of the actual event as it might happen, with the initiation of the quote request through, partner selection, making the quote available, waiting for the PO, and ultimately purchasing this. And then that is kind of the purchasing process. And then the other elements here are en route, in progress, final testing, and completed. And again, with real world kind of service events, it won't happen, over a 14-minute time span. It'll be a little bit longer than that. But suffice it to say, you'll be able to track all of these bits and pieces of the service event for those service providers that are using our mobile application technology. So just another way of attaching a lot of visibility and transparency to the service event that just is not available today normally through kind of how service events are managed within the market itself. So I wanted to kind of wrap up the demo by just showing those elements. As that service event is completed and invoiced, it'll actually go into work completed and again be part of your PartsSource.com history relative to all those service events. The field service report is going to be sent off to you all relative to an email, and that will be a PDF that you can actually load into the CMMS and make this a part of not only kind of this specific service event, but the asset that this service event was executed against, and become part of that asset history record itself. So I'm going to switch back over to kind of the presentation and just wrap up kind of our time together on this virtual webinar. So I'm going to turn back on my video, get into the PowerPoint presentation mode, and just continue the presentation with a few more bits of information. The first one is service event management. So not only are we, again, tracking elements of that service event from a, kind of on-site, what specific steps we're doing with that service event, but we're measuring other elements all the way down to communication behaviors, all the way down to some of the standard, kind of quality metrics, first-time fix rates and the like, all inclusive and captured throughout. I mentioned the mobile app that's available. That captures a lot of this information. Our command center, our service ERP, if you will, on the back end is again, constantly capturing all sorts of metrics that are displayed. And then, as I mentioned earlier, all of this is fed into precision procurement and ultimately driving kind of that recommendation for the best available service specialist. Again, not only based on availability or who he or she works with, but how he or she has performed with working with you all, with working with PartsSource over the years. We've listed at the bottom of this slide some of the elements of supplier performance all the way through and including the specialist performance. But as you might expect, we're asking a lot from our service network, those service providers that are in the service network. So we're asking them to respond quickly to every service opportunity that is sent their way for a proposal back, for a quotation back. We're asking for service specialist information at the time of quote, and that's something that's different. You don't typically have that within the industry. It's like, okay, yeah, I've got engineers that are trained. I'm not sure who might be available. We're actually forcing the hand. We're saying we really want to know at that field service engineer, that service specialist level, kind of their qualifications to do this service event. So we're measuring kind of compliance to our process with our service providers. And then it gets into the work order, right? So as we execute a request and we get into the work order, we can actually see and measure kind of travel times and response times with the work order. And then we get into the specialist performance, the service specialists themselves, how they are working on behalf of PartsSource on your service event, and first time fix rates, work order history, kind of travel times and the like. And then probably equally important is the customer performance, right? So as we think about that service specialist, is he or she reaching out and communicating properly? Is he or she giving you updates along the way? And all of that is measured and metriced throughout kind of the solution. So these are the advanced analytics that are available that ultimately feed back into precision procurement and really is designed to become, again, not only an opportunity for us to provide you kind of with that service specialist for your specific need, but ensure that 6 months from now, as you ask for another service event, that you're going to be getting the same quality engineer for that specific service event, whether it's the same or slightly different relative to the service event itself. And then I mentioned kind of the case study. So, I mentioned it briefly at a high level. We've been doing kind of on-site services for quite some time. This is not new to PartsSource. As I mentioned earlier, a customer calls up and orders a tube for the CT. Sometimes they have the ability to install that tube on a device. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's an older system and they just don't have that training. So we've always had, a couple dozen, kind of service providers on call and available and able to go out and work with customers relative to their service needs. This is one we did back in 2019 as we were piloting various elements of our on-site solution. Summa Health is a hospital customer of ours close to Aurora, Ohio, our headquarters for PartsSource, and we engaged in a very healthy conversation with Summa around kind of their challenges with on-site service and service contracts, and we kind of worked with them to provide them kind of a pathway to say, here's a alternative way to manage the equipment, right? The CTs specifically that you had on contract. They're older CTs. They don't require the level of OEM support that some of the newer equipment does. So we provided not only kind of visibility and transparency to alternative service options, but also parts, because as a piece of equipment fails, you need not only to have a service specialist, but also the part available to do that repair. So spend a lot of time working through not only that, but how to the engineers at SUMA actually become more self-sufficient. So this became, back to the beginning, a kind of training opportunity. It became a on-site service opportunity and became a part opportunity. So kind of the holy grail when it comes to PartsSource capabilities with our customers. And SUMA has just enjoyed some tremendous cost savings. I will offer up that we've actually used the service network a couple times since they decided to go at risk and off contract with some of these CTs. And Murphy's Law being alive and well, even prior to COVID, I think it was like 1 month after they stopped the contract, we had a need that presented itself for a tube and a service event. And, the customer just was pleased beyond measure as to how we engaged with them, how we helped get that system back in operation. And Ken Mylar, who's our, one of our contacts down there, he just basically said, we knew that there had to be a better way. And that's why, we called PartsSource and worked together with us back then. And, it's examples like this that became the foundation upon which we built kind of the solution that I've walked through up on PartsSource.com and now is available to every customer in the United States. So very excited about this being not only a new solution through PartsSource.com, but a solution that's been vetted, and we're very confident and happy to be engaged with multiple opportunities like this throughout the country. I did mention the service network just once or twice throughout the webinar, and I wanted just to give you a flavor for the on-site service network that we've built. It's significant. It covers the country. We do have some customers up in South Dakota and North Dakota, and we actively are recruiting some service providers for those geographies. But suffice it to say, back to my comment earlier, our managed service customers, all of them actually have engineers a car ride away to actually do multiple service events. Now, is it everything, all the equipment that they have? No. As you can see with the table to the right, we feel really, really good about CT, MR, X-ray, even C-arms and mammo with respect to the number of engineers, and then cath. We have access and always growing, so we feel comfortable with cath being part of this. It's heavily a kind of imaging solution, but we do have a strong presence with biomed as well. So, and what we're doing there is focusing in on kind of modalities. So we have a solution that we're in kind of a pilot mode today with doing preventative maintenance on infusion pumps, for example. And as you might expect with some of those logos that you saw earlier, you were talking, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 infusion pumps and delivering kind of a preventative maintenance solution, an on-site preventative maintenance solution for all 8,000 of those pumps, for example, at a very, very attractive price point with, some of the quality that we're signing up to through kind of our on-site service solution. So more to come on the biomed front, but that's been our focus historically. And then, all of this is cool. I like the map. It looks, cool with those pins. But, one of the things, like with a lot of things, it's all local, right? So what does this mean to me? So what we've been doing with a lot of those managed service companies is having detailed conversations like this. So this is a customer in Raleigh, North Carolina. We've engaged with them in kind of a conversation around on-site service, and very specifically, it went down the path of, okay, tell me a little bit more about your on-site service network in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we're able, through kind of our service ERP solution, tap into various geographies. I'm able to access through kind of the service ERP, the number of engineers that are within a travel distance. So this one happens to be a 200-mile travel distance around Raleigh, 80 service specialists that include both independent service organizations and original equipment manufacturers. So we've got both as part of kind of this geographic service network, if you will. Imaging and biomed, service specialists are available. Average years of experience, over 13 years of experience for these 80 service specialists. So again, this isn't a bunch of newbies, and we haven't gone out and hired a bunch of young guns right out of school. This is tapping into kind of the service network that's available out there in the marketplace. And then these are the modalities that we've got covered with these 80 service specialists: CT, MR, X-ray, C-arms, ultrasound. With this service network, we've got nuke med and PET and bone mineral densitometry also covered. So we feel really good about this, and we can do the same thing for other geographies throughout the country. So another call to action for those that are interested: reach out to PartsSource.com, submit some information through the website, or reach out to your PartsSource sales team member that you've historically connected with, and they'll be able to provide you much more information on your local service network on top of kind of the national service network as well. So really brings me to the last slide, and I stole my own thunder relative to kind of the call to action, but I'm hoping that through this webinar you've actually come to appreciate better service options when it comes to on-site service. So this is kind of the largest network of healthcare equipment service providers available in the marketplace. These are all available more or less in an on-demand fashion. So we are doing this in response to many customers wanting to find a different way to execute service events on the healthcare equipment that they own. And again, we're doing this leveraging years of experience that we have with parts in kind of our management of the parts purchasing process up to and including the vendors of those parts, and then also applying that same sort of science, if you will, to the service opportunities that all of you have relative to those service needs that are off contract. So I'm gonna again thank you for your time and attention, and turn it back over to the leaders of the group.
Thank you, Scott, for a great presentation and for showing our audience this great resource. If you enjoyed today's presentation, you might enjoy our ongoing webinar series, Webinar Wednesday. You can find a calendar of upcoming live webinars as well as an archive of on-demand webinars by visiting webinarwednesday.live. To obtain your certificate for 1 CE credit from the ACI, please remember to click the link located below this webinar title to complete the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Thank you all and have a great day.